Welcome to Your Family's Health, the program that focuses on healthcare issues with unique and different modalities for taking charge of your health today. Experts talk weekly with our continuing roster of guests from around the country and right here in Nassau County to keep you up to date on the latest health issues and trends. Take care of your mind, body, and soul. Spend the next half hour with the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC, and get on the journey to better health.
Hello and welcome to Your Family's Health. My name is Joan Buckley from the nursing department here at Nassau Community College, and today we're talking about adverse drug reactions. So our guest is Ken Newton. He's the founder and C.O.O. of MedX Prime, which is a company that is determined to save lives from adverse drug reactions. So, Mr. Newton, we want to welcome you to Family's Health, Your Family's Health, on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. But we really want to know, Ken, how this came about. You're a businessman and entrepreneur, but why get involved with adverse drug reactions? It sounds kind of scary, actually. So what was it that brought you to this point?
Thank you, Joan, and I'm so very, very pleased to be with you today and to be able to share this absolutely vital message with your listeners. It is a critical health issue. Adverse drug reactions are indeed very scary, and I love the theme of your show, taking charge of your health, because today's discussion is all about that. It's exactly that, and adverse drug reactions are something that each and every one of us out there can now be a part of controlling and protecting ourselves from those. So we'll get into that a little bit more. But, you know, the story about how we first got involved actually is quite interesting. Because it's on a very personal level with us. My partner, our CEO, was on a business trip flying from New York to California. Very long trip, very boring trip. So he was simply flipping through the in-flight magazine, and he read an article about this very, very simple genetic test that had been around at that time about 6 or 8 years. So it's not experimental in any way. It's not a clinical trial or study, well-established science, and yet it would give doctors information that would help them prevent adverse drug reactions. And this really hit home with Sunil, my partner, because about a year and a half prior to that, his dad had a heart surgery. It was not serious, although any heart surgery is certainly something to be concerned about. But it was just a valve, so it was more or less a routine heart operation, and it went well. The procedure went fine, but the medications they gave him afterward debilitated him for over a year. It became a shell of the man he had been. Lost weight, lost his hair, always dizzy. Thank God he's still with us today, because they finally figured out a cocktail of medications that would work for him. But as Sunil was reading this article, he was thinking about his dad and saying, if he had only had this test, he would not have had to have gone through that whole year-plus experience.
Wow.
And then even more so, Sunil's wife, Lori, when they have 2 daughters, and all through middle school and high school, they had done Taekwondo, karate. That was their thing that they did, mother-daughter thing. And Lori was up for her black belt. So she had a particular kick, an elevated kick to do to break a board, and, that went fine. She did the kick, broke the board, but when she landed wrong on her knee and just blew out her knee. Well, very, very serious. So they, immediately rushed her to the ER and put her into surgery. And again, pretty routine surgery, and that went well. But that evening, they put her on her pain medication that so depressed her breathing that she nearly passed because of the adverse reactions she was having to it. So again, Sunil's thinking, my gosh, if this test had only been available to her we would not have had to have gone through that extremely trying, very, very emotional experience where they almost lost her. So that prompted us to look a little bit more closer into it. Sunil returned from that trip and he said, guys, we're not medical professionals, but by golly, we are going to get involved with this. There is a message here that we need to get out to the world that, we could be a very, very large part of helping people avoid adverse drug reactions. We didn't know at the time, but we very quickly learned that ADRs, adverse drug reactions, are actually the fourth leading cause of death in our country. That's not the 40th, that's not the 400th. The fourth leading cause of death in our country as a result of the prescriptions that doctors are writing for us. So we determined at that point that we were going to step in and help educate people. And this is what we do. This interview is a part of our national awareness campaign where we seek in many different ways to help educate people and doctors and medical professionals about this very, very simple 2-minute test that doctors can give to their patients.
Now, can you explain what the 2-minute test is?
It's a very, very simple, you can think of a Q-tip on a long stem, a swab. It's simply inserted into the cheek on one side. It's rubbed there for about a minute. A second swab is inserted on the other side. Many people have probably seen this on television shows or, crime shows or detective shows, that sort of thing. So it's very, very simple. The 2 swabs are then sent to the laboratory. The test can also be administered with a mouthwash. A very, very simple procedure. You take a small container of mouthwash, swish it in the mouth, and put that into a tube, and then send the tube. So very easy and very quick. It's not invasive in any way. That specimen is then sent to the lab that we're working with, and the doctor will get a report in about 7 to 10 days that tells them exactly which medications are good for the patient, which are safe, which medications are not, and then the dosages that are recommended.
Wow!
It'll also report. It reports not just on the drug-to-gene interaction, Joan, but it also reports on the drug-to-drug interaction. So if somebody's on multiple drugs, it'll let the doctor know that there's a potential conflict between those medications. It will report on the drug-to-food interaction and also the drug-to-alcohol interaction.
That's incredible. That is really, really exciting, and we're going to find out in a minute. You're listening to Your Family's Health on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Joan Buckley from the nursing department here at Nassau Community College, and today we're talking about adverse drug reactions with Ken Newton, who is the founder and COO of MedX Prime, a company that's determined to save lives from this epidemic. So you were just touching on some very key things, and a lot of things, because I've been a nurse for a bit. You always ask a patient, have you any allergies, any food allergies, and what drugs do you take? Those are such key components. My concern is this 7-day, find out 7 days. So that wouldn't help anybody that shows up in an ED and gets maybe an antibiotic or something like that. But who does benefit from this, having this piece of time where you can better prepare for maybe a significant surgery, such as your partner's dad? If this had been part of his pre-admission testing, correct, then he may not have had that year of trying to figure out what happened from the surgery. It wasn't maybe the surgery, but it might have been some other things, the drugs that were given. So what about that time? That long 7 days is too long, but are you seeing it used, maybe I'll put the question that way, with people that can have planned surgeries or planned treatments?
Certainly, with planned and preemptive care.
Yeah.
This is all about prevention of care. In an emergency situation, you would hope
it's
that
difficult.
the patient would have had this test previously, and that's where we're going with this. We do expect, and all the medical experts believe that this test will become a standard of care in the next 2 to 3 years, maybe 3 to 5 years, but ultimately, we believe everybody will have this test as they go into their doctor, and they check their blood pressure, they check their pulse, they take a urine specimen, and then they would take this genetic test.
Yeah, so it's almost
a primary record.
Yeah, so everybody would have a baseline, and then as they get older, really does sound smart. Now, how is it being received? Like, where are you getting your positive feedback, and where are you getting your pushback? No pushback.
The patients across the board, every week goes by, we hear stories from patients that have benefited from the test.
Wow.
Doctors, more and more, especially over the last 18 to 20 months, more and more has been written in the media, across the media spectrum, whether it's online, news, print media, medical publications, popular media, but we're seeing a lot more about the test in the media. And also in medical conferences. It's now being featured in medical conferences, so doctors are increasingly becoming more aware of it. And, of course, doctors speak to doctors, so, they're hearing about it from their peers. There's a lot of buzz. And that's one of the really frustrating things, Joan, is that this test has been around for 14 years.
I know, that's so wild.
Most doctors have just not heard about it, and of course most patients have not heard about it, despite the fact that there's huge credibility. Major medical institutions are using this. Mayo Clinic, Johns Hopkins, Stanford, Vanderbilt, Cleveland Clinic, the list goes on. St. Jude Children's Research Hospital actually tests each and every patient. So it's well accepted. It's simply that most doctors have not yet heard about it.
All they would need is one patient to have an adverse reaction to something significant that would be life-changing, and I think it would be life-changing for the practitioner as well.
And it happens all the time.
Yeah.
As doctors adopt the test, and we hear the stories. Oh my goodness! I had this patient that had been having medication issues, for the longest time. We couldn't get it right, and we did this test, and now we see exactly what's going on. We just a quick example. We had a young lady who was actually the daughter of one of our representatives. She's in her early 30s. She had been treated with a medication for a behavioral disorder for about 15 years, since she was in high school. And the issue was getting more and more pronounced, so much so that she actually couldn't function in her job anymore. She had a very, very good job, well-paying job, and had to stop that because of the health issues that she was experiencing. So, of course, our representative had become aware of the test, and when he joined our company, he said, this is something my daughter needs to know about. So they brought it to her doctor. And her first doctor said, no. I know what I'm doing. I've been doing this, 30 years. I don't think that's necessary. And of course, the representative was, upset. He said, this is information you've never had before. There's no downside to this, but the doctor just resisted. So, they went to another doctor. And that doctor, a little bit more open-minded, he said, well, of course, why would we not want this test? This is great. Let's get this done. And sure enough, the test came back, and the doctor met with the dad, and he said, I don't know how to tell you this, but I'm surprised your daughter is actually alive. His words.
Wow.
He said, every medication that she's on is the wrong one for her. So, of course, they changed her medications, and literally within a month's time, 30 days' time,
big change.
The dad reported back to us. He said that his words, I've got my daughter back. He said,
wow.
This is amazing. And so much so that she was actually able to return to work and was kind of restored to the person that she had been.
Wow, that's the time. This is the time to take a quick break, because this is a high point, right? What a wonderful story. My name is Joan Buckley from the nursing department here at Nassau Community College, and today we're talking about chronic pain. No, we're not talking about chronic pain. We're talking about adverse drug reactions with Ken Newton, who's the founder and COO of MedX Prime, a company determined to save lives. You are listening to Your Family's Health on the Voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying, totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad, just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
We now return to Your Family's Health on the Voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Thanks for being with us today. This is Joan Buckley from the nursing department here at Nassau Community College, and we're talking about adverse drug reactions with Ken Newton, who is the founder and the COO of MedX Prime, a company determined to save lives. Now, before the break, we were on a high story. At some point, the young lady, by just using this test, it changed her life. She actually was back. Dad said, oh my gosh, this is my daughter again. Now, I see this as in pre-op testing. It should be there. I have never heard of it being there. I've done pre-op testing. I have friends that do pre-op testing. You know, before you go to surgery, you're evaluated and interviewed. And, I know people that work with in hospitals where things like this really are looked at, and they want to know why someone had an adverse reaction. And I have never heard of this. So, I'm going to be inquiring all my friends, all my family members. I'm going to be saying, did you hear about this? This simple swab test that could be done. What do you think is the reason why some of the primary practitioners haven't done this? Do you think they really think they could figure it out?
Well, it's twofold. One, I think you touched on one piece of it there, is that doctors, been in practice 20 plus years, 30 years, 40 years, and they're very used to doing things their own way. Mm-hmm. They are resistant to implementing a new procedure or changing the way that they've done things. Doctors, another piece of that is doctors are extraordinarily busy, far busier than most of us can really appreciate. They're overwhelmed.
I agree.
And the truth of it is sometimes they just don't have the time to discretionary time to look into the things that they really should and in fact do want to know about, but it's just a question of discretionary time to be able to do it. And I think that's why the conferences, the symposiums, the doctor-to-doctor buzz is moving a lot of physicians in our direction over the last 18 months or so. But we were another piece of that, and this was published this time last year by National Public Radio, NPR.org, noted in an article that over the last 5 years, over $9 billion, that's billion with a B, mm-hmm. over $9 billion has been paid to over 900,000 physicians by the pharmaceutical manufacturers. And I don't want to make too bold a statement, but sometimes you wonder if doctors' judgment can be skewed by that sort of support they're getting from the pharmaceutical manufacturers. Now, I hasten to add that this article also said that trend is becoming much, much less because of the awareness and the sensitivity toward opioid overdose epidemic, but still, I think that is probably a piece of the puzzle as well. But we do see it all moving in our direction. Medicare does reimburse for the test. They pay for it. Medicaid in 19 states pays for it. Many insurance companies, not most, but many insurance companies do in fact pay for the test. The country's, America's largest health insurer, United Health, they just recently approved the lab we work with as an in-network provider. So that's a huge, huge ringing endorsement of the test by the healthcare industry. And even the FDA. The FDA requires this test on over 70 drugs and highly recommends this test on 100 more. So there's a tremendous amount of credibility associated with the test, and generally, as soon as doctors become aware of these facts, then, of course, they become much, much more open to implementing and adopting the test.
So do you think, instead of the question, do you have any allergies to medication or do you have any allergies to food, do you think eventually that possibly this test will be just ordered as routinely as a complete metabolic profile, like just ordered? The swab, just do it.
We do.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, we do. And most medical experts that survey the industry believe that it's obviously, without any question, it's moving in that direction as a standard of care. Simply the routine procedure that most doctors will, of course, implement for the betterment of their patient's health. So whether that's 2 or 3 years, 3 to 5 years, it's hard to say when it will be implemented. But I believe we're absolutely moving in that direction. Well, it will become a part of each patient's standard medical profile, entered into their electronic medical record, their health record, and available. I mean, regardless of the science, the common sense of it, I mean, you and I, Joan, would be very quick to agree. This is information that doctors have never had before prescribing. And there's literally no downside to having this information. And the science, of course, is very, very sophisticated, but it is simple. The basis of this is that you and I, because of our genetic makeup, our genetic profile, are going to metabolize a medication differently. We're going to process that differently. I may be a rapid metabolizer. That medication would go through my body without having the intended effect. Certainly information the doctor would want to know, but because of your genetic profile, the same medication, you may metabolize it very slowly, and it would build up toxicity in your system. So again, clearly information a doctor would want to have, and equally so, it may be that neither of us metabolize that medication at all. It would have no effect on us.
And you're listening to this on Your Family's Health, the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Joan Buckley from the nursing department here at Nassau Community College, and today we're talking about adverse drug reactions with Ken Newton, who is the founder, C.O.O. of MedX Prime, a company determined to save lives. And you're absolutely right about medication metabolism. I mean, it happens with any drug. And people just don't think about it. And this is like, I really have, what is the downside of this drug? What is the cost? Is it expensive? Is it,
well, fortunately,
about a number? Yeah.
Yeah. For people that have a medical necessity, that is, if they're on medications, if they're taking medications, particularly if they've had issues with their medications, either not working, giving them side effects, interreacting, that sort of thing, then if there's medical necessity, then Medicare will reimburse the laboratory. They'll pay for it. Medicaid in 19 states pays for it. Many insurance companies pay for it. I just mentioned United Healthcare, huge, that they now have adopted it and are paying for it. But if somebody doesn't have medical necessity, and they're just forward thinking, and they want to have this in their medical record because, we really never do know when we may have a medical emergency or a new health issue may arise. So if they just want to have this test, it is available in the same manner. They would simply have their doctor order it. Then they would pay for it directly to the laboratory. It's $1,200. You can put that on a payment plan with the laboratory over the course of a year. You could put that on your credit card. For people with financial hardship, the laboratory offers a discounted price. So it is available and affordable. It is a one-time test, of course, one-time lifetime test because our DNA doesn't change. So when you consider the downside of an adverse drug reaction, then that becomes a very, very reasonable investment in one's own safety and well-being.
I think anybody who has gotten a medical bill from their insurance company showing how much they pay would not consider $1,200 outrageous at all compared to other prices of other items that are on those bills. I think it's very reasonable, actually. But I love the idea that they meet you financially where you're at. The labs are. Are the drug companies, are they starting also to reach out to the physicians privately, or are they just allowing you to campaign? Like the swab.
Yeah, we don't see the drug manufacturers, the pharmaceutical companies are not yet behind PGX. I think they're neutral. I am not aware of any negative activity, not promoting or discouraging the test. Equally so, I don't see them advocating for the test either. So our approach has been twofold. We, of course, we're well into our fifth year now. We were kind of pioneers, early movers in marketing this test to the health community, but we also are very, very vigorous about bringing this to the public at large. And of course, this interview is part of that. We launched our national awareness campaign to the public a little over 2 years ago now, so that we have representatives all across the country that call on doctors, call on hospitals to educate and inform them about the test. But we're equally active in letting just rank and file citizens know about this. We've designed a one-page letter. We make this letter available to anyone simply for asking. There's no cost to it, and it's a letter that they can bring to their doctor to ask for the test. It's been brilliant. It's really worked well.
That is so smart. What is a website where someone that wants more information about this can go to? Give it a takeaway website for them.
MedX Prime is our website. It's MED, the letter X, Prime, PRIME, MedXPrime.com. But if you tell your listeners, we have a toll-free number. It's 800-989-7703. They can simply call that number, leave their name, contact information, and we will send that letter to them.
That's wonderful.
We don't take any personal information, no Social Security numbers, no credit cards, nothing like that. It's strictly information. We'll send them this one-page letter, and it describes to the doctor the credibility, the science, that this is something that this patient wants, and then our contact information will be right there on the letter, so the doctor or his practice administrator can call us, and we'll send them the collection supplies, and any patient can get this test done simply by getting this letter from us. So, Again, that's 800-989-7703. Just give us a call, and we'll make sure you get that letter.
Ken Newton, I want to thank you very much for being here today. This is Joan Buckley from the nursing department here at Nassau Community College, and we want to thank you for listening to this week's edition of Your Family's Health.
We'd like to get your feedback on your family's health. Send your comments by emailing them to WHPC@ncc.edu. Podcasts of today's show are available on iTunes, Android Podcasts, and Spreaker. This program was produced at the studios of Nassau Community College in cooperation with the Nursing Department. Join us next week for another edition of Your Family's Health on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.